Have you ever looked at your life and thought, I'm eating healthy, I'm exercising, I'm taking all my supplements, I'm fasting overnight, I'm doing cold plunging, I'm in the sauna, and I am still exhausted. I'm doing everything right. What's going on? I listen to AI, I'm looking things up, I'm watching Instagram, and I'm doing all of that too, just to be healthy, strong, and have loads of energy. But here's the truth, and this is maybe a hard truth. Burnout isn't always caused by doing things wrong. Often it is caused by doing too much for way too long. I'm Jennifer, and this is Emily. We are board certified and functional medicine certified health coaches, and we help our clients identify the root causes and then implement sustainable changes for life. So, Emily, what are we talking about today?
We're going to talk about how burnout can affect cortisol, your stress response, nervous system regulation, being a high achiever, fatigue, overfunctioning, hormone depletion, and what we can do to help us with recovery.
Hmm. That is a lot we are going to cover today, but really
Yes,
important.
yeah, it is.
Absolutely.
It is. I think we should define what burnout is
I would
first.
love for us to go there because this is so confusing. I've talked to so many clients, like, I don't know, am I in burnout? I have no idea. So tell us more about this.
So the Webster Dictionary does say that burnout is a state of severe physical, mental, and emotional exhaustion caused by long-term, which you already sort of mentioned, long-term unmanaged stress. It involves deep tiredness, cynicism, and detachment from responsibilities and a feeling of low accomplishment. I've
Wow.
experienced that.
Yeah, I have been there, which you will hear my story.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Is there an easy way to
And
like for people to figure this out though? Is there anything?
there could be many signs that you're burnout. One of the top five are you want to become antisocial,
Hmm.
you get really critical or cynicism towards other people, your loved ones, you give everything to your job or whatever you're trying to take care of or whatever that thing is that's burning you out, and you leave no time for self-care. Your values start to misalign. You don't feel value. You don't feel like what you're inputting is making a difference.
Hmm.
And then even getting sick.
Yeah.
Those are great signs that you are reaching or have reached the state of burnout.
Absolutely. All of those. Check, check, check. I've been there. So do we have anything to help them, people decide, I mean, because you've covered a lot, we have a tool?
We do have a tool. We have a tool and it's called the Burnout Assessment Tool. And
Yes.
it's a quick and easy handout that we can share with our clients if you want that free assessment tool. And you just answer some questions, you rate yourself to figure out if you are in the state of burnout.
Yeah. I love that tool because it's just, we still sometimes wonder, like, are we not? And this really is the gold standard tool out there. And I think it's out of the Netherlands, actually. Yeah, so we will make sure that that is in the description. And I'll mention it again a little bit later, but that way you can take this assessment and see where you're at. You're going to have a score. Absolutely. So burnout, I want to like really go a little bit further into this because a lot of times we think it's from being so busy, and burnout is not simply a scheduling problem. It is not. It's actually physiological problem. So let's take a look at that of like breaking it down of what we as women, particularly this how this affects us. We have successful careers, we are going, going, going. We take care of our family members. We volunteer often because we love giving back. We manage households. We support our friends and partners. I'm exhausting even reading this. It's like, yeah, we do all of that. And I know you're probably like, yeah, listening, like, yeah, you're checking those boxes, right? So constantly giving energy away, giving it away and not replenishing it. So we're going to be like really diving into this burnout. Is not just an overnight problem, okay? It's rarely over just a few months, rarely. It was years for me of building up. Back in 2016 and 2017 was the worst, so a couple of years, but it was years of building up to my burnout. And what happens often as women, we normalize this exhaustion. We're like, oh, but this is just the way we feel. This is the new norm. This is we don't think anything's wrong because everyone else is doing it that we know. All of our friends are doing this. So we feel like we're supposed to go through it as well. And that's not a healthy way to think about it. Being productive is not, being productive and burning out like this becomes this badge of honor. And that's not a badge that I want to wear anymore. You know,
Mm.
I never want to go back there, and I do everything I can to avoid that. So we often don't realize we're actually in survival mode until our bodies force us down. They force us to stop. And that is my story as well, is all of a sudden physical symptoms happened to actually tell me like, Jen, you've got to stop. There's seriously something wrong, and having to go to a functional medicine doctor to really start the build-up process. So, question for all of you listening is like, when was the last time you really felt rested? Like, really think about that. Not just after vacation, but really deeply restored. When was that last time? And Emily's going to talk about the science behind all of this, which I love. Like, tell us, Emily, like the cortisol stress response, because we want to understand this more.
Yeah. Right. Cortisol is that hormone that throws us into that chronic, overwhelmed burnout state. Cortisol is good. Our bodies were designed to handle the stress, right? Cortisol is very important for us. It keeps us alive. But that constant level of cortisol is where it can become damaging. It is the stress hormone. We need it. It helps us wake us up in the morning, maintains energy, helps regulate our blood sugar, right? We're running from the tiger, so we need that increase of blood sugar, and it also supports focus. But when it becomes chronic and we're never decreasing our cortisol, right? That circadian rhythm that we should respect. Cortisol rises in the morning, gets us up in the morning, helps us give us that drive, that productivity, and then we want that cortisol in the evening to go down. We want lower cortisol so we can have more melatonin to help us sleep and rest and recover. Signs of chronic cortisol levels. So when your cortisol levels are all out of whack and your circadian rhythms are all out of whack, you may have high cortisol in the afternoon and then high cortisol at night. And then you have a tired and wired situation. That is a really good indicator that you have a cortisol dysregulation, that your cortisol is maybe a chronic level and the circadian rhythms are off. Your afternoon energy crashes. So if you need a pick me up, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, caffeine, chocolate, or some kind of snack or sugar, something to wake you up in the afternoon, that is a sign that you can have cortisol dysregulation. Or the wired but tired, right? Falling asleep. I can't fall asleep. My mind is racing. I'm tired. I'm exhausted, but I just can't get myself to calm down because you lack the melatonin, because cortisol has trumped anxiety, right? Where you can't have clear thoughts, or you're not feeling grounded, you're feeling irritable, anxiety, racing thoughts, feeling of overwhelmed. Another sign of too much chronic cortisol throughout the day. Increased cravings, if you're constantly craving carbs or sugars or something to um, feel like you're alive because the cortisol has worn you out. That could be a sign. And then also gaining weight, especially in the midsection. Cortisol loves to increase the waistline and get that tire. And that could definitely be a sign of some too much cortisol.
Yeah.
And interesting, our bodies don't distinguish if we are running from a tiger to save our lives, or if we are stressed from a difficult conversation with a loved one or a boss, or you're tired from being the caregiver of a cancer patient or a cancer loved one. It doesn't matter. Your body does not know the difference.
Mm,
Cortisol and the stress is stress. Your body will respond the same way. Increases cortisol, increases glucose, increases insulin. And that is tiring on the body.
yeah, yeah. I had a recent conversation with a client and he was commenting how he's not stressed at all. And so I'm like, okay, right. And I laugh right now about that only because I was that person too. I'm like, I'm not stressed, right? And then once you go through something, then you realize how much stress plays a role.
Mm.
So we don't know until we often go through something truly. But yeah, then he was also saying a little bit later in the conversation how his heart rate variability, HRV score on
Mm.
his aura was very low. It was in the 20s. It was quite low for especially, 20s is low, period. But then for his age as well. So it's really then looking at, well,
Mm.
what is stressing me then? And it could be so many different things like you mentioned.
Right.
So diving in and really doing that work is so worth it. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. And I want to talk about two distinctions here. Over functioning, which Emily talked about a little bit, and then the high achiever fatigue. So high achiever fatigue and over functioning. Let's talk about that a bit,
Mhm.
because many women experience burnout. Everyone else depends on us, right? Okay, so I say that and I want you to really let that sink in. Are you that person that everyone depends on? Are you? This is really key. So when we look at over functioning, these are some things for you to consider. And you can make a note on your paper right now, like, are you the person that takes responsibility for everything? And obviously it might not be 100%, but you get what I'm saying. You're always being responsible for most everything. Are you solving everyone's problems, work and home and friendships and everything else? Okay. Do you struggle to ask for help? That's a big one. Do you feel guilty for resting? I'm saying that one slow because I was that person. I'd be like going, going, going all day, totally exhausted. And then I was like, oh, time for bed. I didn't even have time to
Mhm.
like rest, but I didn't feel like I could rest. I had to go until I basically dropped into bed. Like, where did that come from? Why was I wired that way? So feeling guilty for resting, like that's a big thing. And then another thing with overfunctioning is, do you believe your value comes from productivity? Do you believe your value comes from productivity? Being a Gen Xer, this is a very big deal. This is like ingrained in us in particular. So think about those things, and that's how we define overfunctioning. And then high achieving women, you might hear something like this, okay? So to define this further is you hear, oh, you're so strong. You're so strong. You high achiever. You go, girl. Or
Girl
you
boss.
always get things done. You always get them done. So like bring on more, right? Sure. It's like a badge of honor. Or you might also hear, I don't know how you do it all. So if you're hearing those things, these are just a few ways you might recognize yourself as a high achiever. The problem is that you now embrace them as part of your identity. This is now your identity. So it is difficult to release this. It's the work that I have done is like really working on getting rid of that. That's no longer my identity. And does it creep back in now and then? Of course it does, right? Rears its ugly head, and you just have to be cognizant of it. As soon as it does, you do the work to back it out again because you don't want to get back into burnout. So, is that your identity now? I want you to ask
Mhm.
yourself, are you carrying responsibilities that actually belong to someone else? So, think about that for a moment. And then I would love, Emily, if you can talk about the hormone connection here.
Yeah, so why are we talking about burnout and why do we care, especially as women? Because it can disrupt our hormones at any age, really. It can affect at any age as women and our hormones and the balance of the estrogen, the progesterone, the sleep, the blood sugar. The thyroid,
Mm.
the thyroid is very sensitive to stress, right? Your adrenal glands, your thyroid, your blood sugars, your progesterone, your estrogen clearance, it's all connected. And cortisol will disrupt all of your hormones, the metabolism, the balancing, the ability to produce the testosterone, the progesterone, the balanced blood sugar throughout the day so you're not on a roller coaster ride, your TSH, right? All of your thyroid levels. It's very damaging, especially if it's consistently every single week, all the time happening, month after month after month. Your body will start to experience mood swings, poor sleep, anxiety, irritation, irregular cycles, heavy bleedings, maybe even producing fibroids, PCOS, the fluctuation of the lack of periods, heavy periods. I think I got it all, but I don't know, that's a lot. But it can disrupt all of those there's a balance with our hormones, progesterone, estrogen, testosterone, TSH, and we really want to respect that. And
Mhm.
chronic burnout and being overwhelmed and being a superstar and a high achiever or a caregiver or just always on can really disrupt your hormones. We do have a handout. I wanted to mention, Jen, we do have a handout, especially for menopausal women, perimenopause, menopausal women. There is a handout. We have a great assessment tool that you can answer a lot of questions and see if you are being affected, your hormones are being affected, and it's affecting your life. I mean, it can really affect your daily living if your hormones are out of whack.
Yeah. I'm glad that you mentioned that because every time I go over it with a client, they are blown away of the potential symptoms. Because many times out there, you're just thinking, well, I'm not having hot flashes or night sweats, so I'm good. And that's just one of like, what is it, 40 symptoms, you know? So
Yep.
once it's like you start to learn and you're like, oh, now I feel like educated on this, like, okay, I am having this, and this, and is it related? So yeah, so if you're interested in that questionnaire, you can email us and we're happy to share that with you.
Yeah, and it's not a call to be more disciplined or push harder or do more, put more into your calendar. It's not what we're trying to say at all. It's listening to your body and it may be begging for recovery or quiet time or alone time or the power to say no. And the things that Jen, you're going to talk about eventually is how can we put into our calendar downtime and
Yeah.
recovery and rest.
Yeah. Yeah, and right before we got on, Emily and I were talking about, bookending your day of like, how do you begin your day? How do you end your day? And think about it that way because it is precious time for you. And it's really important to prioritize that. So with me, coming out of burnout, I will share with you that I did get Hashimoto's thyroiditis through that whole thing. I gave basically myself an autoimmune disease. I have been 5 years in remission now, and I never did end up taking prescription medication. So I holistically came out of that, but it took like a few years to get rid of those antibodies. And really, most of it was all about really managing my autonomic nervous system. So the nervous system, we call it the autonomic nervous system. You've got sympathetic and parasympathetic. And sympathetic is that fight or flight and also freeze. Freeze is a situation too where you just like, you're not sure what to do. That's stressful too. So fight, flight, or freeze. Sometimes people think if you don't do anything, you're relaxing. Well, not for the people that are truly frozen when they're paralyzed because they don't know how to make a decision or something. So remember, that's also part of sympathetic, but parasympathetic is rest, digest, restore. I want to breathe as I say that word. So now people ask me, years later, well, what do you work on for your health? And I say, well, I work on managing my nervous system always because I know I'm really susceptible to sliding back in once you go through something like that, you never want it to happen again. And so that you do, it's top of mind. It is always top of mind. And will life get lifey and pull you back in? Absolutely. But once you have the tools, you recognize and become aware so quick that you immediately put them into place. So healing doesn't happen when the body feels threatened. The nervous system needs the signals of safety. So how do we give it safety? I'm going to give you some simple practices that have worked really well for me. And these are, one of them I have to tell you, it costs nothing and you always have it with you. And you might be thinking, what is this? Is this a riddle? I will tell you at the end. So morning sunlight exposure, that's not the answer because sometimes
Yep.
it's not sunny out. But when you wake up in the beginning of the day, one of the best things you could do is go greet the sun. Just go greet the sun. It's a wonderful thing to just wake up your body and be ready for the day and just allow your face, close your eyes, allow the sun to hit your face and just breathe that in. Another is walking outdoors, outside. Nature nurtures whether you're walking, hiking, walking to a place or a destination, walk everywhere. It's so good for us. Get your steps in. Doesn't need to be like active zone two cardio, whatever. You could just walk. One of the things I found for the first time in my life when I was pulling myself out of burnout was walking meditation. I started walking and I was like, God, I feel so good and light. And then I realized, oh, I feel like I'm meditating. It was a meditative state of walking. And I stumbled upon that, and then I started looking it up. I'm like, it's a thing. It really is. So walking is so good. Strength training without overtraining. Strength training is so good. First of all, you feel like a badass, right? When you get strong, I was talking to somebody earlier and she was like, and I looked at her, I'm like, girl, you're getting some muscle there. And she's like, I feel so good. And you could see like the smile on her face is just like she feels so strong and confident, like she could do anything, right? So strength training is a really good thing for you for so many reasons, but just don't overtrain. We want to make sure that you're giving your body the time for recovery. And then prioritizing protein. I can't say enough about this one because it was something that I finally realized, after years, and I really prioritize it to the point where I feel very off if I don't have it. And it will be through moments of the day. So if I don't have, like, if I'm not feeding myself correctly, meal timing wise, the beginning of the day, a few hours later after my workout, I will notice it. So it really, everyone around me knows. I'll say all of a sudden, oh, I need some protein. This is the thing I do now because it's so ingrained in me. But it really works. And so clients that work with us often, they make this shift and they're like, this is the number one best thing I could have done for my health. I'm so glad you told me about this protein thing. It does help balance your blood sugar so you don't have the cravings for the nighttime eating and the sugary foods and the salty foods and all of that. So really prioritize protein and start out by breaking your fast early in the day when you wake up. Creating moments of stillness, and Emily mentioned quiet time, quietude. Just allow yourself quiet time. Get an actual book and read from the book versus digitally. This has been a big change for me. Anytime I go back to reading from a device and then I go back to a book, I feel so different by having the actual book in my hand. So it's a really big deal. But also meditation or just relaxing. It doesn't need to be much of anything. You might even just play some board games with family members or friends. So the final thing I'm going to mention here, I told you it was like a riddle. What do you always have with you that is free? You never need another tool to go with this. It is breath work. Breath work is numero uno. If you get nothing else from this, remember that breath work, you always have it with you. You can do it anytime, anywhere, and it's free. There's no cost to this. But this has saved me so much, even in like anxiety or panic attacks. I just go into breath work and I'm able to put myself in a different state. So it's a big deal, but the compounding effect of doing it daily, even for just 5 minutes at the end of your day, is remarkable because now you build resilience. And that's the goal. It's not to eliminate stress. Stress is going to happen. And we kind of want stress. We don't want to be in parasympathetic all the time because then we don't even know how to respond to our stress. What we want to do is build resilience and
Mhm.
recovery. So resilience and recovery is where it's at. So Emily, how do we like wrap all this up?
How we build that recovery, right? So if you're feeling burned out despite everything on your to-do list and you're getting everything done the right way, consider this. Your exhaustion may not be a sign that you're failing. It may be a sign that you've been carrying too much for too long. So the solution isn't always about pushing harder, putting more on your calendar, organizing a little bit better. Sometimes it's just creating that space for your body, your hormones, and your nervous system to recover.
I love that. So I want you to check out the link in the description that we have of this video on YouTube. And we have the free assessment tool for you. So you can take that and see where you're at. And then you'll have 5 simple ways to prevent burnout as a gift from us. And just remember, health is not about perfection, it's about progress, one step at a time. Until next time, take good care of yourself and make it a healthy day.